There's a kind of change that doesn't make noise but changes everything. It's not that fast, flashy transformation that looks impressive on the outside. It's the kind that reorganizes you from the inside. It's when your choices change, your posture shifts, your mindset transforms, and suddenly, life starts responding in a different way. Becoming unrecognizable in 2026 isn't about turning into someone else. It's about finally becoming the version of yourself you've been putting off. Maybe you feel like you've tried to change before, that you started the year full of plans but lost momentum along the way. That doesn't mean you're not capable. It means no one ever taught you to build inner power before chasing outer results. Women who build wealth, millionaire habits, and solid lives don't start with money. They start with identity. 2026 doesn't have to be just another year that goes by. It can be the year you look back on and barely recognize yourself, because your mindset, your discipline, and your confidence are on a whole new level. If you feel like this is your moment to flip the switch, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick with me. The next steps aren't about motivation. They're about real transformation. First habit: rebuild your identity before trying to change your life. Most people try to change their life while holding on to the exact same identity. They want to earn more, live better, have more power, but still see themselves as their old version. And that creates a silent conflict. You might want something new, but you act like someone who still doesn't believe they deserve it. Women who become unrecognizable understand a simple and uncomfortable truth. Life never rises above the level of your identity. I realized this when I looked at my own routine and saw that my results made perfect sense for the person I believed I was. I said I wanted wealth, but I thought like someone who constantly needed to explain herself. I said I wanted freedom, but I was afraid to make bold decisions. Nothing was going wrong. It was just all aligned with my self-image. The turning point came when I stopped asking, "What do I need to do?" and started asking, "Who do I need to become?" I began to observe how a confident woman thinks, how she reacts, how she carries herself when no one's watching. And little by little, I started acting like that version, even before I had any external proof. At first, it feels weird. Then it becomes natural. And when your identity changes, your habits follow. Millionaire women don't start by stacking cash. They start by stacking inner alignment. They think, decide, and move like someone who knows exactly where she's headed. Comment: I'm becoming my new version. This affirmation is the first step to breaking the old cycle and making space for the woman 2026 will reveal. Second habit: build silent discipline when no one is watching. There's an invisible difference between those who dream of wealth and those who actually build it, the discipline no one sees. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 don't rely on motivation, applause, or outside pressure. They create internal, silent rituals that fuel their growth even on ordinary days, especially on those. I learned this during a time when my life felt stuck. I only took action when I felt inspired. On days I didn't, I gave myself permission to delay, to negotiate with myself, to start next week, until I realized that this pattern wasn't just slowing down my results, it was weakening my self-trust. Every broken promise to myself was a silent vote against the woman I claimed I wanted to be. That's when I decided to change something simple. Keep small daily commitments, even when I didn't feel like it. Read a few pages. Tackle a task. Move my body for a few minutes. Nothing big, but non-negotiable. Over time, something powerful happened. I started to trust myself. And when a woman trusts her own word, she becomes dangerous, in the best possible way. Millionaire women understand this deeply. Their discipline isn't harsh. It's consistent. It's not loud. It's solid. They know wealth is built in the repetition of what seems small, but shapes identity. Comment: I keep the promises I make to myself. This affirmation strengthens the foundation of your inner power, the kind that supports any external result. Third habit: protect your energy like you protect your assets. Women who build real wealth learn early on that energy is an asset. Before managing money, they manage where they place their attention, time, and emotions. Because anything that drains you slowly robs you of your ability to grow. And often, the biggest saboteur isn't lack of opportunity, it's constant exhaustion. I realized this when I started noticing how I ended my days. It wasn't about overworking. It was about being too scattered. Conversations that led nowhere. Worries that weren't even mine. Content that only made me more anxious. People who demanded a lot and gave very little. By the end of the day, I was drained. Not because I did too much, but because I was spread too thin. That's when I understood that millionaire women aren't cold. They're selective. They don't explain everything, join every debate, or try to rescue everyone. They know that every poorly placed yes becomes a no to their own growth. I started protecting my energy intentionally. I learned to silence what didn't lift me up, to end conversations before they turned toxic, to respect my boundaries without guilt. At first, that feels uncomfortable. Then it turns into strength, and that strength starts showing up in your results. Those who don't protect their energy spend life putting out fires. Those who do build silent empires. There's a point in this journey of becoming unrecognizable that hardly anyone talks about, but it weighs on you silently every day. It's really hard to build inner power when deep down, you still feel financially insecure. You might try to protect your energy, change your habits, grow in silence, but just thinking about money makes your body tense. Fear of not having enough, fear of depending on others, fear of not being able to sustain the life you're building. That fear doesn't always show up in words. It shows up in the small choices you make, in the compromises, in the decisions you postpone, in the boundaries you don't set. And that creates a deep internal conflict. Because while you're trying to become a stronger, more confident, prosperous woman, there's still a part of you living in survival mode. And no transformation can last when your financial foundation is emotionally unstable. It's not about laziness. It's not about lacking ability. It's about an unresolved relationship with money, one that no one ever taught you how to heal. That's exactly where the Wealth Code was born. A guide designed to transform your relationship with money from the inside out, so that financial security stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a place of support. It walks you through a simple, accessible method to help you build stability, clarity, and freedom. Not to show off, but to live with ease and choose your own path without fear. If you feel like you can't keep growing on the outside while carrying this weight on the inside, the link to the Wealth Code is in the first pinned comment. Fourth habit, build inner power before chasing external power. A lot of people want respect, money, and recognition without realizing all of that begins within. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 understand that real power isn't imposed. It's felt. And it's only felt when you build a strong inner core that doesn't shake with every opinion, rejection, or unexpected turn. I realized how fragile my inner power was when I started observing my reactions. All it took was someone disagreeing with me for me to over-explain. One thing going off plan and I'd start doubting myself. I had ambition, sure, but I didn't have the emotional stability to carry what I wanted. That's when I understood. You can't build a big life on a shaky inner foundation. Inner power begins when you stop reacting to everything, when you learn to pause before responding, when you choose not to prove anything to anyone, when you stick to decisions even without applause. That kind of strength doesn't show up in motivational quotes. It's born from the daily practice of self-control, clarity, and self-respect. Emotionally strong millionaire women don't win arguments. They win over themselves. They don't over-explain, don't shrink to fit in, don't abandon their values to be accepted. And that creates a presence so solid the world naturally responds. When you build inner power, the outer world adjusts. People treat you differently. Opportunities show up differently. Life starts to demand more from you because you're ready. Comment, my power comes from within. Dachnim. This affirmation anchors the quiet strength that will support everything you're building in 2026. Fifth habit, turn money into a tool, not a source of anxiety. There comes a moment in life when you realize it's not the lack of money that hurts most. It's the insecurity it creates. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 aren't obsessed with money, but they don't run from it either. They learn to see it as a neutral tool that amplifies who they already are. When there's fear, money becomes a prison. When there's clarity, it becomes freedom. I spent a long time with a tense relationship with money. I thought about it constantly, but avoided looking at it directly. I feared not having enough, feared making mistakes, feared being dependent. And that silent fear influenced every decision I made, from what I accepted to what I tolerated. It wasn't until I chose to get organized, gain understanding, and take responsibility for my financial life that something shifted inside me. My bank balance didn't change first. My sense of control did. Millionaire women don't ignore numbers, but they also don't define themselves by them. They know exactly how much is coming in, going out, and what they need to live well, because clarity reduces anxiety. And when anxiety fades, energy can be used to create, grow, and expand. Wealth begins when money stops being an emotional problem and starts becoming a strategic ally. When you understand it's here to serve you, not control you. Comment, money works in my favor. This affirmation helps reframe your relationship with something that, until now, may have been a source of fear, but in 2026 becomes a source of power. Sixth habit, Think long-term while living in the present. One of the biggest differences in women who become unrecognizable in 2026 is the way they see time. While many are stuck in the now, putting out fires, handling emergencies, reacting to life, women with a millionaire mindset can live in the present without sacrificing the future. They make decisions today with the woman they want to sustain 5-10 years from now in mind. I realized this when I noticed how many of my choices were aimed only at easing immediate discomfort. I spent money to feel better, settled for less to avoid conflict, delayed important decisions because it wasn't the right time. It all seemed justifiable, until I saw the pattern. I was trading the future for momentary comfort. Change began when I started asking myself before each decision, does this strengthen or weaken the woman I want to become? That one question completely changed the way I acted. Some choices became harder in the short term, but incredibly lighter in the long run. I began rejecting shortcuts, avoiding quick fixes, and investing in solid paths. Millionaire women aren't trapped by instant gratification. They know that discipline today equals freedom tomorrow. They understand that every choice is a vote for the life they're building, even when no one's watching. Thinking long-term doesn't mean living tense or disconnected from the now. It means living with awareness, with intention, with maturity. Comment, I think about the future I'm creating. This affirmation reinforces that your choices today are already shaping the strong, secure, and prosperous woman 2026 will reveal. 7th habit, take action without needing external validation. There's a decisive moment in a woman's transformation, when she stops asking for permission to live her own life. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 understand that waiting for approval is a silent delay. They don't move only when others agree. They move when deep down they know it's the right decision. I realized how much external validation controlled me when I noticed how often I hesitated before acting. I'd worry about what people would say, who would disagree, how I'd be perceived, and while I was busy calculating everyone's reaction, time, and opportunities slipped away. It wasn't a lack of courage. It was emotional dependency. The turning point came when I understood that no woman builds wealth, power, and autonomy by trying to please everyone. There will always be someone who doesn't understand, who criticizes, who projects their fears onto you. And when you learn not to move based on those voices, something shifts deeply. Your energy aligns, your presence strengthens, and your decisions become clear. Millionaire women don't over-explain. They don't justify every move. They trust their own read of life. That's not arrogance, it's emotional maturity. It's knowing that if you're the one paying the price for your life, then the choice needs to be yours too. When you act without needing validation, respect follows naturally. People can feel when a woman is aligned with herself, and the world responds differently. Comment, I trust my decisions. This affirmation seals the moment when you stop outsourcing your authority and take full command of your own life. 8th habit, raise the standard of what you accept in life. There comes a point in transformation when you realize it's not about how much you want. It's about how much you tolerate. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 understand that the standard you accept today becomes the ceiling of your life tomorrow. And often, without noticing, you get used to less than you deserve, less respect, less recognition, less money, less care for yourself. I realized this when I started observing my own compromises. Small things I would justify. A low-paying job for now, an unbalanced relationship until things get better, constant exhaustion that I normalized. None of it seemed serious on its own, but combined, all of it was shaping a life far below my potential. The turning point came when I understood that raising your standards isn't arrogance, it's self-awareness. It's looking at a situation and asking, is this aligned with the woman I'm becoming? When the answer is no, discomfort shows up. And that discomfort is the sign of growth. Millionaire women don't compromise on core values. They know that every wrong concession costs a lot in the long run. That's why they choose more intentionally where to invest their time, energy, and presence. They don't settle just to avoid being alone, nor do they accept any condition just to feel temporarily safe. When you raise the standard of what you accept, life has to reorganize itself. People leave, opportunities shift, paths realign, and while at first it may feel like loss, it's actually liberation. Comment, I raise my standards. This affirmation marks the moment you decide to no longer settle for anything less than what aligns with the strong, prosperous, and self-aware woman 2026 is revealing. 9th habit, grow in silence while the world still doubts you. There's a stage in transformation when no one really notices what's happening with you, and that's intentional. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 learn to grow in silence, without announcing plans, without seeking validation, without wasting energy explaining every step. They understand that noise invites sabotage, but silence protects the process. I experienced this when I decided to change my life without telling almost anyone. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed space to make mistakes, adjust, and mature. Every time I spoke too much about my plans, opinions came, doubts came, people's projections came. And without realizing it, I started to doubt too. It was in silence that I found focus. Away from opinions, I found clarity. Millionaire women understand that not all growth needs an audience. They work while others talk. They build while others criticize. They adjust while others judge. And when the results show up, they speak for themselves. There's no need to convince anyone. The transformation is obvious. Growing in silence isn't about hiding. It's about protecting. It's about respecting the timing of your own process. It's knowing that what you're building doesn't need to be understood by everyone. Not yet. When you stop sharing everything, your energy concentrates. Your progress accelerates. Your identity strengthens. And the woman who emerges from that no longer asks for permission. She takes up space naturally. Comment, I grow in silence. This affirmation anchors the quiet power of someone building something far too important to be interrupted before it's ready. 10th habit, act like the woman you want to be before you feel ready. This is the final point of transformation, and at the same time, the true beginning. Women who become unrecognizable in 2026 don't wait for total security, perfect clarity, or unshakable confidence to act. They understand that readiness doesn't come before action. It comes after. Waiting to feel ready is just a polished excuse to stay the same. I realized this when I saw that every major change in my life began while I still felt insecure. It wasn't when I felt brave. It was when I acted despite the fear, despite the doubt, despite the voice saying, I'm not that woman yet. And ironically, it was that very action that turned me into her. Acting like your next level self doesn't mean pretending. It means making decisions aligned with who you're becoming, even if there's still hesitation inside. It means saying no when the old you would have said yes. It means speaking up when you used to stay quiet. It means treating your life like someone who knows her own worth, even if that worth is still being strengthened on the inside. Millionaire women understand this deeply. Identity isn't something you discover. It's something you practice. Every aligned decision strengthens your new self. Every consistent action weakens the old one. And one day, you'll look back and realize you can't even behave like you used to anymore. Not because you're trying, but because you've changed. The woman you'll be in 2026 is being built now. In the details, in the small choices, in the ordinary days. Comment, I act like the woman I'm becoming. This affirmation seals the cycle of transformation. Becoming unrecognizable in 2026 isn't about rushing or chasing perfection. It's about aligning identity, habits, inner power, and wealth in a consistent way. It's about rebuilding who you are, creating silent discipline, protecting your energy, developing inner strength, transforming your relationship with money, thinking long-term, acting without needing validation, raising your standards, growing quietly, and taking action before you feel ready. These habits don't just create results. They create a woman who can handle any result. And when that happens, life responds, not because of luck, but because of alignment. If this video spoke to you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop this in the comments. 2026 will be my breakthrough year, because when a woman chooses to change from the inside out, the world has no choice but to follow.